Each week in the city of Sydney, Australia, the Government Lottery Office sells 700,000 tickets in lotteries carrying prizes of up to £100,000. So what, you say? Just another statistic. But this is a very human statistic, for it shows how eager most of us are to make a change in our way of life, to get away from it all. And why? Well, take a look at Sydney, for instance. Who wouldn't want to get away from all this? So it's a beautiful city, and you've got a nice home. But I still say that, makes you think of weekends outdoors, doesn't it? Okay, I admit it. Life in Sydney can be pleasant, in a quiet kind of way. But honestly, what is there here to really interest a man? I mean, say, what is there to encourage him to stay? How can he get any excitement out of life? Well, you see my point. There's absolutely nothing to keep you here. You've got to get away, revitalize your life, rejuvenate yourself. Enjoy things again with the zest of a 5-year-old. You can't waste time waiting to win the lottery either. So you find the money and the time and you get moving. You and thousands of other happy wanderers go sailing off to London. And probably stay first of all at Earl's Court. Pretty soon you realize that all Londoners aren't exactly living it up either. They too have their visions of a more varied, stimulating life. After all, there's a limit to the thrills that you, a Londoner, can get out of monuments and historic buildings, like the Houses of Parliament, and Trafalgar Square with its Nelson's Column. Maybe you never do get tired of seeing the household cavalry and the changing of the guard at Buckingham Palace. But it's only natural to hanker for new sights and experiences. Mind you, the West End never entirely loses its glitter and glamour. But you can't always be in Piccadilly Circus or Leicester Square. In any case, what's there to look at? You begin to be harassed by the problem of what to do with yourself in the evenings. In the end, you try to get away from it all. You take to the water, on Regent's Park Lake. You and the kids. The Thames offers you more water space, a greater sense of expansion, freedom. But it's not enough, is it? Deep down you feel constricted. You've got to get away, see something different. The quicker the better. By jet, rocket ship, anything, as long as it's fast. Well, maybe not that fast. You didn't see much that way, did you? So you decide to take things a bit slower. And easier. And more relaxed. With plenty of time to appreciate with relish all the delights of travel that'll be yours. That first step onto the deck is a sort of liberation. You feel that this is how you are meant to live. Keyed up, deliciously alert. The gates of the lock are raised, and the way to Australia and the world is open. Not just for the ship, but for you. Gibraltar. At first sight, just a great rock, 1,400 feet high, 3 miles long. But on this trip, you've got time to go ashore, and you find quite a lot to interest you. Just across the bay, Spain, separated from Gibraltar by this frontier post. All the fighting on Gibraltar these days is done by its famous apes, for peanuts. There's about 40 apes in all. And here's something you don't often see at Gibraltar, a baby ape in public. Too close. You've really settled in now, and you enjoy showing your friends the things you bought so cheaply in Gibraltar. For some people, exploring the ship can bring all sorts of surprises. Taking a look at a ship's compass are Bob and Heather Traynor, who got married in London the day before the Himalaya sailed. They're off to a new life in Australia. There's another honeymoon couple on board, Dick and Heather Chapman. They first met in South America, are now heading for India, where Dick's got a new job. Depending on yourself, making friends aboard ship can be a simple matter. Or not so simple. In fact, of course, people on ships are extremely sociable. And if anybody goes to bed early, well, they're sure to miss a lot of fun. Naples, and the old Roman town of Herculaneum. Not as famous as Pompeii, of course, but in some ways more interesting because it isn't so well known. Heather and Bob hear all about the burying of Herculaneum under the mud and ashes of Vesuvius 1900 years ago. Many buildings have yet to be dug out. That's Vesuvius in the background. The dormant volcano is completely barren, in contrast to the fertile land round it. There's a chairlift to the top of Vesuvius, but Heather and Bob and other enterprising visitors prefer to get the feel of being on a volcano. Vesuvius is 4,000 feet high, though, and at times they wish they had taken the chairlift. The volcano has erupted on an average once every 10 years for the last 500 years. But Heather and Bob find no sign of activity in the crater, except for this tiny wisp of smoke, or steam.
The new form of the crater, half there, the last eruption in 1944.
There are said to be poisonous gases way down inside, but nobody's going right down in there if they can help it. Naples, as the Himalaya departs. When they're not out in the sunshine, the children are cared for in the ship's nurseries by Hilary Blackwell and her staff. Port side at dawn. The Himalaya is here for several hours, but most of the time it's night. After sunrise, port side reveals itself briefly. Now our ship begins the passage through the Suez Canal. On the P&O-Orient Line's route to Australia and America via Suez, it's normally not possible to see much of Egypt, but when travelling back to England via Suez, you can usually spend a day at Cairo and the pyramids, while your ship goes through the canal. No use trying to kid you, it's often pretty hot in the canal, but that doesn't really bother you much. Inside the ship, air conditioning is more than a match for the desert heat. And there are other aids to comfort. Even in these Arabian temperatures, up on deck you can still see that popular and ancient sport, manhunting. Well, it gives you something else to write home about, doesn't it? So that ships can go by in the opposite direction, the canal splits into two channels at this point. The trip through the 100 miles long canal is slow, but it's quite an experience. And before the end of the day, the ship reaches the Red Sea. Aden, where you can buy cameras, transistor radios, all sorts of luxuries duty-free. But there's other points of interest if you care to take a good look round. Inside an extinct volcano is the town's main commercial centre, known as Crater. Aden's economy is based on its value as a ship fueling station. As many as 11 ships a day have been known to call there. This, believe it or not, is a golf course on the outskirts of Aden, the Arab town of Sheikh Othman. A racing camel, one of many used by the local soldiers, who are known as the Aden levies. As a special favour, the levies provide mounts for Dick and Heather.
Like an earthquake. No.
And now a word from the camel's mouth. Even a racing camel doesn't quite break the sound barrier. Its top speed is not much more than 10 miles per hour. When things get a bit slack on board, there's always the physical features of the landscape to interest you. On a clear day, binocular enthusiasts can even see the mountains of the Himalayas. You're in the holiday spirit most of the time aboard ship, and Mad Hatter's Night steps up the pace. Bombay, India's chief port. The Watts family, who are emigrating to Australia on the Himalaya, meet Charlie, the performing monkey, and his trainer. I rather think that this is the bit that Charlie likes best. It's hazy today, but this will give you an idea of the size and setting of Bombay, a textile manufacturing city of 3 million people. The big question is, are the cobras used by snake charmers entirely harmless? It's a point that the Watts family would like to be certain about. Yvonne has new respect for her daddy. She didn't know his charm extended to cobras. Neither did he. Though, on second thoughts, it's hard to say if the cobra is charmed or antagonized. You know, maybe those critics of sea travel are right. Maybe shipboard life is slightly unreal, somewhat superficial. But who wants to be face to face with the hard facts of life all the time? Colombo. We can make quite a day of it here in the capital of Ceylon, as the Himalaya arrived at dawn and won't be leaving until 11 tonight. The little girls in this outdoor class perhaps are daydreaming of one day becoming as beautiful as this, splendidly adorned with richly ornamented bangles, gorgeously dressed in saris of heavenly shades. A few miles out of Colombo on the Kandy Road, you find the Ceylon of coconut palms and paddy fields. Nancy clinks coconuts with Tony. He's from Ceylon, she's American. Ceylon is mostly Buddhist. These are student monks. Maybe you don't like cashew nuts, but you'll certainly like the girls who sell them. Elephants mostly work for a living in Ceylon, hauling timber and so on, so they too appreciate their afternoon break. If there is anything you've missed out on buying, you might be able to catch up with it in one of the shops on board. On the voyage from Colombo to Western Australia, there's time for meditation and the study of human species, in all its strange forms. What kind of food do you get on board? Now, that's certainly a major question. I can't go right through the lengthy menu with you, but all this should make it clear that you don't need to bring any picnic baskets. A night at the races, but it's frogs instead of horses. And the secret is to coax them along. The aquatic sports give the girls a chance to be openly aggressive. Handfuls of grease, lavishly applied, and your end is slippery and sudden. Many hours of secret sewing activity culminate in the fancy dress parades. Two of the big kids, David and John, both fresh from university in England, prepare to play sheiks and harem girls. above decks, the teenagers rocked themselves to sleep. Well, it was quite a night. But a girl's got to be at her best for landing in Australia, which is pretty close now. Perth, the first major Australian city you see when travelling from England via Suez. Australian wattle intrigues English couple Sheila and Bob Hallworth, and daughter Christine. The black swan is a native of Australia, mostly found around Perth. These small kangaroos are called wallabies, in case you don't know.
Around about that. It was very fast. I couldn't remember what.
Yeah, they're 50 miles an hour, no trouble. I've been in motorcar and there's no more sort of car. Really?
Yeah. A lot of them are much bigger than these, aren't they?
Oh, yeah,
They're eating corn, though mostly they feed on grass. Christine just loves them.
Listen, light one. Can you see the kangaroo? Can you see the kangaroo?
Christine has made up her mind she's going to get herself a wallaby. She's got her brother Bobby helping now. Christine still won't give in. But what chance has a girl got when a man sweeps her off her feet?
Oh, I'll catch it then, right?
Melbourne, Australia's second largest city. The Himalaya stays here 2 days compared with the usual 1 day at most of the other ports. The cottage home of Captain Cook, brought from England and re-erected in Melbourne. The 1956 Olympic swimming events were held in this pool, now used for many purposes besides swimming. Summer concerts take place in this music bowl. One of the Himalaya's America-bound passengers, Nancy, takes a run out from Melbourne to see something of the countryside.
Hey, Glampuss.
Nancy calls on fellow passengers Bob and Heather, who disembarked at Melbourne the day before and have already moved into their new home at Bendigo. It's their first home since their very recent marriage, and they're delighted with it. Bob, who's a doctor from London, is equally pleased with his new job at Bendigo General Hospital. Bob and Heather have learned that Bendigo was once a gold rush town, but now nearly all the mine shafts have been shut down. The man who first discovered gold in Bendigo in 1851, Paddy Hannon, is here commemorated. Heather isn't at all apprehensive about her future in Bendigo. But even a brand new housewife knows she should study local food prices. This young country that Heather and Bob have come to has its own kind of beauty. day begins as we enter the harbour. For many on board, it's the end of the trip. Brother and sister John and Judy Champ enjoyed being in Europe and the sea trip, but now they're pleased to be back in Sydney. Already the Himalaya continues her voyage. She's off around the Pacific to the United States, then back to England via Australia and Suez. And even though you've just got off, at times like this, you kind of wish you were still on board. But you've got to be realistic, haven't you? Good heavens, you've just got back. You can't always be travelling. You can't always be... Anyway, lotteries are hard to win. Though, of course, you certainly don't have to win a lottery before you can travel. Most of us just have to work and save. Most of us do. Most of us. Well, as I said before, you probably should work and save. But if you've got travel fever, you'll get moving again almost any way you can. All that matters to you is to be aboard ship, really living. Calling at the world's fascinating ports, getting to know the people of other countries, finding out for yourself the truth of things, seeing life as it should be seen, gliding through the seas to faraway places, with a rainbow at your bows and adventure in your heart.